Yes, it is Tuesday ticket. I nearly called it the Monday Club. That was yesterday. Tuesday ticket time.
You've got the Monday Club banner up.
Oh,
We
that's
didn't know
right.
what day we're on.
That's what it is. That is exactly what it is. It's because
There
I've
we
got the
go.
wrong banner up. Good start. I was like, what am I? Where have I got the Monday Club from? That's why. Welcome aboard the bus. It is the Tuesday ticket. Sadly, there will be no dramatic finale to Sutton Death to discuss. We will do Sutton Death, of course, because, Jonathan, I'm all about winning points after the event. It still shows that I am, the leader, the leading competition in that tournament, Jonathan, the leading light. Right, okay, let's get all that good stuff done, and we will get into a few different wee debates about the old Celtic. Right, okay, all that good stuff means if you want to hit the subscribe button, please do. Like the show if you want to get it more traction on YouTube, help that algorithm out. If you it was a wee share, 2 seconds, my washing machine's going. 2 seconds.
That's all his Boise bus merchandise going through. That'll be the tops that he was selling. The Bumblebee kit will no doubt be getting washed. Honestly, you can't write it. He ends up deciding to do a show, go live, his washing machine's blaring in. Aye, do my head in two.
I've paused it. Yeah, so if you want to give the show a wee like, share, slag my hair, even better. Or if you want to become a Boise Bus member, like so many of you had, such as Ali, Scott Cameron, Phil McKinley, Stephen Murdoch, Ryan Taylor, always goes in with the VHWFG at the start. I love that attitude, Ryan. Like David, like Scott Cameron, like so many others. Then it is $1.99 a month. But the content on the bus, you know, these trips are always free. It just helps keep the wheels on the road. Teresa Lyle, Jim C, 2 more members just jumping in just like that. Also, of course, a big shout out to our sponsors, ED Pharmacy. They've been supporting the channel for the last few weeks, Jonathan. They've been making sure if you end up in the foo bar, that when you go home after it, you can keep partying on after. They are a company who provide erectile dysfunction treatments, and they won't let you down. Obviously, if you're around Central Scotland, they offer free same-day delivery service 7 days a week. And for the rest of the UK, they aim for next-day delivery. Order cut-off is 6 p.m. edpharmacy.co.uk. And, of course, they also have a wee QR code you can check here. So if you want to give that a wee scan, Mrs. is probably encouraging you right now. Give it a wee scan. There it is on the big screen. And remember, when you go on to edpharmacy.co.uk, make sure you use the code BUS10 at the checkout for 10% off and all the help you need with the wee pat boner. What can you say, Jonathan? Obviously, we've got pie sports as well in the corner. Still a tasty 12.5% off at the checkout there by using the code BUS1888 as well. Boom! Now we're done. Tuesday ticket. Jonathan, it was a wonderful weekend lifting the trophy. We didn't bask in the glory too much on the channel. We actually decided I was just going to go out. I got to run out for 10 minutes, mate. A wee 10-minute run out on Saturday on the channel, on the bus, and that was enough. I think it was quite obvious, judging by the scenes that we've now seen from Merton City and things, that where everyone was, put it that way. I think there wasn't very many people going to be jumping on the bus on Saturday afternoon, and quite right to it. It was a day of celebration. It was the day we lifted the trophy. It was the day Celtic got their form back. It was the day Ange didn't miss in the speech. Sum it up for me. Saturday was good, wasn't it?
Yes, Russell, Saturday was a very good event, wasn't it? It's a bit like theatre at the moment in Scottish football. You had Celtic putting in a 5-star performance, pulling out all the critics and proving them wrong after weeks of ridicule that's been quite frankly ridiculous, to say the least. But Celtic answered their critics and put on a sterling performance. We are now heading towards the business end of the season. Saturday cannot come quickly enough because it is ultimate drama and theatre on Saturday, because Celtic are going to try and break a leg and break a record amount of trebles. They fine-tuned their performance superbly on Saturday for this event, and who knows, it could actually be a record-breaking treble coming their way on Saturday. And, sticking with that theatre theme, that might just be before we get a change of cast, maybe even a change of the headline act in Ange Postecoglou. Only time will tell, but certainly after the performance on Saturday, Celtic are back with a bang, and they mean business going into the Scottish Cup final this Saturday against Inverness Caledonian Thistle.
Absolutely, they do, Jonathan. They do look like they were back in business, as I say. When it's a fixture that, now obviously the league's already won, but I think still at the weekend there was an element of responsibility Celtic had to get back to where they've been all season in terms of performance. And the reason for that is not just because it's a rehearsal for the Scottish Cup final next week, but also I just think on Trophy Day, that responsibility level goes up a notch. It's a celebration. It's a massive thank you day, I think, to the fans, and from the fans to the players for their achievements, but I think from the players to the fans as well for turning up for 19 league games, as well as all the other ones. It's the final sort of cheerio to them. And I think it just goes to show when there is a wee bit more impetus on the fixture and the stakes are a wee bit higher, Celtic come out all guns blazing. It should be no surprise. We've done it all season. I think anyone who's been caught up in 4 rounds of fixtures, Jonathan, that have occurred after the event, and the event is the league being won, which we won 4 points further clear than when the Diddy across the road took over. I can't emphasise it enough. People just don't want to listen. However, when they do say Mickey Beale closed the gap, Jonathan, all I do is I just think of I think of that hilarious little clip that's doing the rounds right now between Celtic women and Rangers women, and you must have seen the video now.
Oh, the ponytail.
She's just holding her ponytails out. That's so good. So we've got Phil working on it. We're going to get Phil, if possible, to get that GIF up so I can just pull it up. In the meantime, while I don't have it, we'll just do that one. See you later, Bill. But yeah, it's just hilarious that anyone was questioning the difference, and it just shows you as well how well it's been spun, I think, in the media, and how much the hype train they still seem to have from all quarters, all comers, and maybe I think in Celtic's fans' case, I think we are a wee bit known to be sort of panic merchants and always feel like we've got to, justify everything we do and panic if things don't go well. We've got a massive game this weekend for a world record 8th treble. Things are looking pretty good, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, this is looking like it could be a historic week for Celtic. They couldn't have picked a better moment to find their form again. I think Postecoglou's obviously realised that there's now time to stop the messing around with team selections. He's got a big game to win next week, and I think that showed with how he went against Aberdeen, that he was going full strength. The players looked a lot more invested. They always want to seem to put on a show on Trophy Day for the fans, and it's not the first time we've put on a bit of a clinic on the last day of the season at Celtic Park in front of a capacity crowd in the sun. And
I like that, a bit of a clinic. That's good. I'm stealing that. That's good. I like that.
That's what we tend to do on the final day of the season when there's a trophy going to be awarded after full time. And I wouldn't be necessarily surprised if Celtic come out all guns blazing on Saturday, because once again there is a trophy on the line and an opportunity to make history there, which is what this group of players have made their own sort of records this season. And I think, they had that little lapse in form the last couple of weeks, but really it was just because the team was getting changed around an awful lot. I think when Celtic go back to their full strength...
It was human nature as well. I think it's okay. I think people are... If you don't realise, that you've... when you've won, you've achieved something, the foot naturally is going to come off the gas a bit. I think even myself included, there was a wee bit of criticism was a wee bit over the top, all things considered, was there not?
Yeah, I think so. I think because the form had been so good up until this point, they'd actually almost made a rod for their own backs a little bit, the Celtic team, because they've been so frightfully consistent with how many wins they've been picking up, and a lot of the performances to go with it have been so good that I think the drop off has surprised a few people, and it's almost caught a few people off guard. But these sort of things naturally tend to happen. We've seen it plenty of times down the years when the league is won. The games naturally are not going to have that same competitive edge for most of the players. And there's also that element as well for the likes of, some of the first team players that have been playing the last few weeks, is the last thing they want is to pick up an injury and potentially miss the Scottish Cup final, in a game against the likes of a Hibs, for example, or a St Mirren, which doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, the Celtic Football Club. Those games are not going to be remembered at all. Once the league is won, they're not going to be something you're going to look back on in a few years' time and think, "Oh, mind that time we played Hibs at Easter Road and lost after we'd won the league." Nobody remembers. Nobody cares. So it's all a bit irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Yes, there's always going to be a bit of hysteria. Yes, the media is always going to jump on the bandwagon when there's an opportunity to be a bit of a negative spin towards Celtic. But I think what we saw at the weekend was Celtic once again proving just how good they are and why they are deserving champions, more to the point, because I thought that was about as ruthless as they've been in months against Aberdeen, particularly the last 15 minutes or so, where they just decided to up it another gear, and they decided, rather than just settling themselves for 2-0, they looked like the game might have petered out. They showed that will never stop mentality that seemed to have been missing the last couple of weeks, and they decided to push on with the gas, and they ended up getting their just rewards. And it was a very deserving win at the end of the day. So I'm looking at that and thinking, going forward into the cup final now, the players are going to be brimming with confidence. I wouldn't be necessarily surprised if what you've seen at the weekend is the exact same starting 11 that Postecoglou ends up going with come Saturday night.
That seems fair. Saturday evening, yeah, of course, because it's the 5:30 kickoff, isn't it?
It is, yes. They've already said, I think BBC One will be showing the England game, so if you're needing to catch up on the Scotland, you'll need to watch it on BBC Scotland if you don't indeed have Premier Sports, because that's been causing a little bit of a ruckus around it. But obviously, if the FA Cup final in England goes to extra time, it'll overlap, is pretty much what's happening there.
Because it starts at 3, doesn't it?
It does, yes. So if the Manchester Derby goes into extra time, penalties, etc., then it would overlap into the start of the Scottish Cup final, which means it would be on BBC One. It'll be on BBC Scotland instead. But it's been causing quite the furore, that as well. And I think Celtic have actually got more tickets for that. That's been announced again today. So I don't think there can be too big an uptake from Inverness on that part of things either.
Yeah, I think there's I think I've seen that more tickets had been made available. I still think there's people on Twitter desperately trying to get free ones. You see a bit of that every now and then.
Oh, I don't know what's going on there. He's lost his volume. He's having a very good time of it at the minute. First his washing machine, and now his volume has gone off. But I think he's kind of getting at that point. Oh no, I can't make out what you're saying there. I think that the point we're trying to get across there is that the kickoff time certainly hasn't done Inverness any favours whatsoever. And they're, going to be, I mean, they must be more raging about it than a lot of Celtic fans will be, because at least for them, for a number of the fans that are going to the game from a Celtic point of view, they'll at least be able to get home, at a reasonable time. Whereas for Inverness, travelling back up there is an absolute mission. You're almost as well staying over in Glasgow. Yeah, it is.
I mean, folk talk about it like it's like, they're going to the trenches when they do these things. I mean, it's just a longer burst on it to just get on it earlier. Everyone's always worried about these things. I'm like, it's a day out, enjoy it. And they won't get many games like that in their life. I just thought getting there would have been easier the later it is. I don't know. Just because I'll get home late. Oh, don't want to get home late. What, on a Saturday night? Love a late night on a Saturday night. You know what I mean? I'm never home before 2 in the morning on a Saturday night. I don't know what's wrong with these people. Don't hear me grumbling, Jonathan. So I don't know what their problem is. Yeah, I think we've got ourselves in a space again that we wanted as well with regards to the actual result. We've not really wanted to focus too much on the performance of the weekend, not because we weren't delighted it was back on form. I just think it's one of those days where you kind of summarise like the whole season as a whole. But in terms of the display, if you want to touch on that, you think that will be the lineup that goes in at the weekend?
I would think so. I think so. I can't imagine. It certainly won't be far off. But yeah, if you're pushing me, I would say it's going to be that 11.
Do you think that's quite a deliberate decision then by Ange to have went with that for the final day? Or do you think again, like I say, he had five post-split fixtures. He'd won the league by then, and he prioritised trophy day as the most important.
Well, I think there's an element of both. Yeah, I think there's an element of both. I think he would want to see how other players could offer. I think he probably didn't have his full lineup completely nailed down for the Scottish Cup final. After we'd won the league against Hearts, I think there was games there and opportunities for players to make a claim for a starting position. I think certainly for example, the centre half position beside Starfelt was very much up for grabs as to who was going to partner him, and I think that's why he's given both Kobayashi and Iwata opportunities in there over the past few weeks. And I think for me, it looks like it's going to be Iwata that's going to get the nod because he didn't have too much defending to do against Aberdeen, granted. But I think the fact he's went with him on Trophy Day makes me think he'll probably do the same again for the Scottish Cup final. I mean, other than that, I think most of the rest of the team is pretty much picking itself at the minute. As I say, I think the opportunities were there for others to stake claims. And unfortunately, whether it's just a drop-off in performances because the league was won and people not being able to get up for it as much, I think on the flip side of that, you did have opportunities there for players that should have been doing more with that chance and that didn't really grasp their opportunity because they weren't getting as much game time and they haven't really probably done enough to get a start. They can only really blame themselves for that with the performances that were put in those couple of weeks where the results weren't really there. So I think for me, looking at it, when you come off the back of a 5-0 win, momentum is everything. Those players are riding a bit of a high. I would be very surprised if that's not the starting 11 going into the weekend. Okay,
let's say it is the starting 11. There's a lot of chat in the live chat tonight at the back of the bus with all the rascals, and a lot of talk seems to be regarding they want 2 records. They want the treble, Jonathan, the 8th treble, a world record, and they want in a British Cup final a record scoreline. A record win. Is that something that's beyond the realms of possibility? I don't think so. In fact, what if Andrews to win the treble, young man, and do it by getting the result I predicted last season so boldly, and that was, could he get 10 goals, and could it be this weekend?
I mean, massive. A massive statement if he was able to pull something like that out the bag. I mean, generally speaking, cup finals tend to be quite close, even when there is, big gaps between the teams. Celtic have played against teams similar to the quality of Inverness in the past in cup finals and found them difficult occasions. I can remember some that we've only managed to scrape, 1-0 wins, and they can end up being a bit jittery. I've seen some that we've lost over the years. As well. So I always think on Cup final day, it's always a bit harder to really predict a big win because I always think Inverness will set their stall to be extremely defensive and extremely compact, and I always think the occasion can sometimes make it a little bit more tense. But if Celtic were to get an early goal in the first 5-10 minutes, there's every chance the floodgates could well and truly open on this game because there's no doubt about it. Celtic have the capabilities to hurt anyone in the Scottish Premiership, let alone a Scottish Championship team that are, staying in the Scottish Championship as well. They're not going to be coming up to the Premiership next season, Inverness. So and you've also got to bear in mind, Russell, and I don't know if this will also have an effect on Inverness. Haven't played a competitive game, for a month, roughly, since they last played because they didn't make the playoffs, as you might remember. Does that have an effect? Does that have an effect? I don't know, because that could end up making them a bit more rusty as well, and perhaps more prone to mistakes. There's two ways to look at the argument, of course, but I think that might not help them either.
And Billy Dodd's in charge as well. I mean, it would just be lovely. It would just be lovely. Can't be bothered with him.
Yeah, I've not got much time for him. I don't think he comes across. He didn't come across very well. He used to do. Was it Sportsend? I think he used to be on, wasn't it, Billy Dodd?
He's biased, mate, and it's not even. I'm not even going down the conspiracy road. He just is biased. He can't help it. It's just his team. But he is biased. Phil comes in and says it's a 6-goal margin needed to be better to get a record, I think. And, CM
7-1,
Legends,
I think, is the record, is it not? 7-1 against Rangers?
CM Legends says he doesn't think professionally Celtic would be allowed to go for 6 or 7 goals. Alan, I love you, mate, but welcome to the madhouse. Scottish football's capable of anything, mate. Absolutely anything. Yeah, that's interesting, though. Yeah, because 7-0. We beat Dundee United away this season 9-0.
Yes.
It wasn't that long ago we beat Motherwell, remember, under Tyler 7-0. Albeit at Celtic Park, but they were in SPFL. I think they finished third that year, fourth that year.
Yes, I mean, there's plenty of instances where Celtic have proven they're more than capable of giving teams a doing. Obviously, I guess the other side of it is if they get to the stage we get 4s, 5s, and you're cruising at like half time, as the players can naturally end up dropping off a couple of levels in the second half. I've seen that happen a few times in semi-finals and finals before, as well as your standard league games. But if you were to ask me if Celtic were to go full throttle and score an early goal, I think it could end up being one of those games which will be very memorable and could end up being a record-breaking performance in more ways than one, in more ways than just getting the trophy. And as I say, because Inverness haven't played for so long, I think that's really going to hinder them a little bit as well, because they're not going to.
I didn't realise that. That's a great point, mate.
Yeah, I think they'll be rusty, and the last thing you want is to be rusty and coming up against a Celtic team that is going to be in the mood on Saturday. And I think in some ways it's a bit of an interesting one, that's Inverness, and I can kind of imagine how the narrative's going to go this week is that Inverness are Celtic's bogey team, because if you look at historically, Inverness have done us a few times in the Scottish Cup. They did us under John Barnes, they've done us under Ronnie Dyler, Martin O'Neill lost to them in the Seville season. They also done us to cost Lenny the league in his first spell as manager, his first full season as manager. We lost up at Inverness, which cost us the title. So Inverness have given us a few bloody noses over the last 20 or so years. So I would imagine the narrative going into this is, if there's one team that could do to Celtic what nobody else has been able to do and stop them getting their hands on another trophy this season, it might just be the bogey team, Inverness, Caledonian Thistle. That's the you'll try and spin it. I personally can't see it. I just can't. I think the fact they've not played for so long, it would be the biggest upset, I think, in the history of the Scottish Cup final if Celtic were not to win on Saturday. And I can't
imagine it. It almost takes you, though, going to like a parallel universe to try and picture that happening. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't like to be. In fact, what am I talking about? I love being jealous about things. But I do think, without trying to be OTT, I mean, I think the percent. If you're playing a game of percentages before you go in, where do you rate them percentage-wise having a chance to win this?
Well, I like to bet, Russell. I certainly wouldn't be putting any of my money on them, put it that way, but not even a pound, because I would say they've got very slim chances, and say it's fucking like 1%, 1-2% chance of winning. I think genuinely, I really struggle. I've not looked at what the bookies have priced this up at, but if you want to lose a couple of pounds, you can chuck it on Inverness, and I can assure you that'll be a couple of pounds going into the bookies back pocket. whatever they've priced at, you can take whatever you get from them. But I just think when you're looking at Inverness and where Celtic are at the moment and where they are at the moment, where they're going to be struggling again, and staying in the Championship, not having that game time of the last few weeks, Celtic riding that high after a 5-0 win, showing over the course of the season that when the crunch games have came along to Celtic have always found a way to win them, or at the very least not lose them. Mickey Beale, Ibrox is thinking of you there. But, when it comes to the crunch, Celtic always find a way this season to get the job done. And I just cannot see Inverness, putting any sort of dent in that. I think they could keep it close. I wouldn't necessarily be overly surprised if they managed to keep it tight for the first half an hour, because cup finals can sometimes be cagey affairs. And the longer it stays 0-0, the better chance they have. So that's how they're going to try and approach the game. But I think from a Celtic standpoint, if we keep playing our football the way we're capable of, the goal will come. And when that first goal comes, the floodgates could well and truly open, depending on how early it comes. And I just think it's going to be quite a spectacle, really, at Hampden, because I would imagine we've never really had a Scottish Cup final ever kick off at this time. I just think that could add a little bit more crackle into the atmosphere,
Crackle,
well.
oh yes, I'm all for a bit of snap, crackle, and pop, Jonathan. Let's have it.
Aye, I'm all for it as well. I think it'll be a little bit more, a little bit more crackly at Hampden. There'll be a bit more electricity, shall we say, going around the stadium, because I think the fans will be more pumped up with a bit of a later kick-off. I mean, the way it's going, the fact that they haven't sold as many tickets as well, it's almost going to be like a home game for Celtic, the way it works. I mean, the game's in Glasgow. It's just not getting played at Celtic Park.
The more we're talking, though, the recipe is there for this being something that lives long in the memory.
Yeah.
There could be a historical moment, mate. And I don't just mean the treble. I think the 8th world record treble is. I think 5 trebles in the last 8 years is an extremely historical moment. I think Ange doing it in his second season after all that crack before. I think, yep, fair enough. But imagine, witnessing the record ever Scottish Cup final win, and it being like watching your team do it. That'd be class. It's just exciting a wee bit more about the game. But obviously, as well, it'd be one hell of a way, Jonathan, to bow out. It'd be one hell of a way to say goodbye to the fans, because I'm gonna put my cards on the table. I think he is gone. I think when I have looked at the evidence I've seen so far in the last day or so, my mind's made up. He is 100% heading for the exit door. He's had a brilliant couple of years, by the way. He has really surprised us. We weren't sure when he came in he was going to do this well, and now he has. But Tony Ralston, I wish you all the best when you depart. But it looked like from his Instagram that it was Tony Ralston departing the stage left, and I knew Monty would bite. He's look how quick he is. Dash, just wait till the end of me speaking, Monty. Son, you should know better than that. You're a veteran of patter, young man. I am referring to Tony Ralston, Jonathan. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it does look like he's reached the end of his time at Celtic, and it might just be a fact. He's not really had a lot of game time, over the course of this season. Certainly, last season he was getting plenty of games in there, and I think that's got to play the factor when you're finding that first half of this season Juranovic was pretty much playing consistently ahead of him pretty much every game. And then when Juranovic ends up leaving, you actually end up, for me, with a better right back than Juranovic coming in, and Alistair Johnson. So he's just not really getting a look in. I felt a little bit sorry for him in the first half of the season, because I did think him and Juranovic. I felt last season when the two of them kind of dovetailed in that right back position, and that it was one or the other. There was a good bit of competitiveness over that spot. I felt like that would have probably continued into this season. I think particularly even with Juranovic at that time, peeving Ange off when you watch that documentary, things like that. I thought he might have been more inclined to give Ralston an opportunity. But whatever's happened there in the background, I think with Tony Ralston, he's now maybe got to the point where he's just feeling he needs to be playing more, because his opportunities this season have been extremely limited. And I think he must look at somebody like Alistair Johnson and know, with Juranovic, he maybe thought there was a chance of getting in based on that first season. But with Johnson, I think he's realised his chance of getting in are even slimmer now, unless he picks up an injury or a suspension. So, yes, I think he's done brilliantly in terms of what he's brought to the table in the last couple of years. Absolutely. I don't think anyone thought Ralston was capable of reviving his Celtic career whatsoever. And I think he'll go with most Celtic fans' best wishes as well with how he's managed to actually probably do a sort of almost a career redemption at Celtic, because if he'd left 2 years ago, when we all thought he would, Russell, he was definitely one of the ones we had probably earmarked for the door when Postecoglou came in.
I'm not sure where his career goes for them.
Aye, well that's it. His career's
time.
going down a black hole. It's going down a black hole. It's going nowhere. He's going to the lower leagues in Scotland, probably.
So does he fall then in a situation where, and I think this with Joe Hart, I've said this and I'll say it again, at the end of the day, I think Ralston maybe never got the opportunities. He was billed, if you like, to get. Rodgers gave him that long-term deal. And then, obviously, he never really... He was at Dundee United on loan, I think. I don't know if he did very well there. I think that was in the Championship. And he was at St Johnstone, did okay. And yeah, you're right, the odds were against him. But since Ange came in, Celtic's been very, very good for Tony Ralston because he was at a crossroads, as you rightfully say. And had he left at that moment in time, I'm not sure what division he finds himself in. And I think it would have been Championship Scotland. I think League One England at a push. Maybe, yeah, probably would have got League One England. But it wouldn't have been... It might still be League One England now. But it'll be the higher... echelons of that, where he'll have an opportunity to sort of earn not too dissimilar money, play in front of big crowds, as opposed to going to, I don't know, a South End or something, do you know what I mean? But now, I think Ralston was very good for Celtic, particularly last year, but I think Celtic's been very good for him in the last 2 years. And that's the Ange trick. Ange did it with Hart as well. He's managed to get in those two guys that were on the brink of, careers being in the, well, I'll use Joe Hart's own words, career in the abyss. And he's given them a purpose, given them a platform, and given them an opportunity to play for what we believe is one of the biggest clubs in Europe. Just albeit we don't play in one of the biggest leagues. And they've both grabbed the opportunity that was given to them. And I think against the odds in terms of both. I know Hart might have the pedigree and the reputation, but his career was going absolutely fucking nowhere, for the last 4 years. And he describes it as the abyss. So what he's done is overcome the odds, and it's been thanks to Celtic. What's happened with Tony Ralston is, I think it was a needs-must default situation, and then Ange showed his coaching skills, his coaching ability, by actually going, well, I might need you more than you need us right now, but do you know what? We'll make this marriage work, and I'm actually going to help you. And I think if Ralston goes now, and Joe Hart, I'll pair them together, I think there'd be two guys that you would associate with the 2 first years under Ange as being needed, crucial, unexpected successes that we could easily shake hands with and let them part ways. The photo, obviously, I mean, I'm not saying necessarily Joe Hart. I have a hunch he will be improved on. He might still be in the building, of course. But you get the vibe of that Ralston one, that's him saying goodbye. I would like to think, if that is the case, that he leaves with his head held high and he leaves with some fond memories that he wouldn't have had it not been for the shit show we find ourselves in when Ange Postecoglou took over. But I think he leaves now probably going with a sense of achievement, a sense of, if he'd left the 2 years before that, it would have been an itch he always felt he never got a chance to scratch, would have been being at Celtic that long. Whereas now he can leave with his head held high that he contributed massively, particularly last season. He became a better player. He got the adulation of the Celtic fans. He became someone who contributed massively to trophies in a Celtic jersey. And then clubs evolve, teams evolve. And if that means he's not going to be part of it, I think that ruthless side is required for us to keep going to the next level. It's not about favourites. It's about realism. And if that is the case, I would like to think there'd be not too many complaints from Tony Ralston, and certainly no complaints from Ange if he were to be losing him this summer.
Yeah, no, I don't think there'll be any complaints. I think it's probably ran its course, as I say, with Ralston. And I think you're right when it comes to the actual opportunities at Celtic. You've got to remember it was actually Brendan Rodgers who found Ralston from the youth academy, and obviously
he gave
Rodgers,
him a 5-year deal, didn't he?
Yes, he played him. He played him against was it PSG? Remember he laughed at Neymar. played in a couple of Champions League games. I think that might have been more out of necessity rather than complete choice from memory. But even still, Rodgers still chose to put his faith in him when he was very unproven at that time, which tells you something that if Brendan Rodgers had a bit of an eye for him, and we all regard Rodgers as somebody who's another one similar to Postecoglou, who knows how to develop a player, then Rodgers seen something there. And then, obviously things didn't work out for a few years. Lenny clearly didn't really fancy him when he had a look at him. Maybe wasn't able to get the same sort of tune out of him as Postecoglou would later be able to get from him. And I think, Ralston must have thought, fuck, I've blown this. I'm never going to get another chance. Again, the biggest memory for me in a Celtic shirt is going to be that time I laughed at Neymar, and that's going to be the highlight, which, I'm glad he's had an opportunity to put right and have, bigger and better moments, in a Celtic top. Because now the first thing most people are going to think about when you say Tony Ralston is exactly that. That's just what I was about to say. Stephen Murdoch just stole it from me, is the goal against Ross County, in the first season, because that is probably one of those goals where I think a lot of people began to believe that Celtic could win the league that season. That's how pivotal that goal was at that time. And it's going to be the one when, people look back on this team in 5-10 years' time, and somebody mentions Tony Ralston, everyone's mind is immediately going to go to that game, and he's got that iconic moment. I'm delighted he got that, as well. And if, he's now wanting to part ways, or if it's Celtic now looking to evolve the team, or if it's a mixture of both, then he leaves, with our best wishes. And, good luck to him. Hope he can find himself another good club that he can contribute to as well. And as you rightly say, he's definitely going to have far better options on the table to consider than he would have a couple of years ago. So I think from Ralston's point of view, it might just be time to call it a day at Celtic, just so he can get some more games, perhaps get, a better wage salary, etc. And from Celtic's point of view, it's an opportunity there to then again possibly have to look at that right-back situation, though, Russell, because they're going to need competition for Alistair Johnson now.
Would that be the
don't have anyone.
45th right-back we've signed in the last 5 years, something like that?
I feel like we go through them pretty fast.
Ironically, though, we could fund the new right-back with money brought in via another right-back. In the curious case of it, Jeremy Frimpong going to Manchester United, those rumours do not die down. And I think that would be quite ironic that if we were to make £7-8 million this summer off him, on top of the 11 million that we sold him for, that would be one hell of a bit of business that would have turned into. And yeah, absolutely. I think what we're seeing as well is with Ralston, I hope people aren't easier to say cheerio to Ralston than they will be with other guys. I think for me, if we're going to go down this ruthless approach road, then there is other opportunities in that team where you can go, thanks, but now for season 3, no thanks. But thank you for what you did. You helped us get to the point where you've actually became not good enough for the next step. But we appreciate you getting us there. That's just big club mentality, mate. That's the rules. And I've got no problem with that whatsoever. John Duncan says Ralston's going nowhere. He's better than Johnston. I mean, I get that, John. I take it you've not seen the photo, no? You're just commenting blindly. I think it's very rare that a player with his daughter, with his back to the camera above the dugout would not be leaving. I think you should maybe check out the photo, John, and you might change your tune. It definitely looks to me as though he is exiting the building. Otherwise, it's quite a self-indulgent photo to post. It's like, all right, no worries, mate.
Maybe he's just trying to take the story away from Ange Postecoglou. He's thinking, I'll take it for you, Ange. Here, I'll post a picture. Maybe this will get some of the heat off you. All these questions about Spurs, I'll make it about me a little bit.
Yeah, Kimchi's trying. He's not having either. He thinks, is it just the photo of him walking up the tunnel, and he's covering his eyes? I don't know. Like, I would say in the modern era, that photo is exactly what a player does these days when they're dropping their first hint on their Instagram that changes a foot. Could be wrong. I wish him all the best, man. And if he stays, happy days. But we can still improve on him as the backup option. That's just the reality. I think he is. I think if you've not read if you've not seen the photo, or if you have seen the photo and you're not picking up the same as us, I suppose it's your gift to not do that. But I know my mind is made up what that photo was designed to achieve. I'm pretty sure in my mind anyway what that photo was designed to achieve, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, it does look like all signs point towards him heading out, but at the same time, I'm doing a little bit more thinking. You've got the Champions League games obviously next season, which are guaranteed, and you do need a certain quota of homegrown players. It does seem, when you look at it from that point of view, that he would have probably fit the criteria, as one of those, backup right back, particularly when Alison Johnson is going to be your number one choice. And Alison helps you fill that quota of homegrown players that you need. When bear in mind, Celtic have just given a new contract to Scott Bain for, in my opinion, that exact same reason. So he fits the homegrown quota for the Champions League games, because for me, there's no chance Scott Bain is going to be getting a run in the team unless something goes seriously wrong with Joe Hart in terms of injuries, because there's just no way that Scott Bain is good enough to be the number one at Celtic, in my opinion. So it's a bit of a strange one if you're looking at it from that prism, because generally speaking, you would like to keep your homegrown players. And Celtic don't have, an abundance of them. You've got Scott Bain, they've got Cal McGregor, James Forrest. You would look at somebody, Greg Taylor would be another one.
Season 15 it will be next year. Season 15.
Oh, he's got a contract for life, though. I don't think you'll get to see James Forrest with that picture on Instagram until he's actually hanging up his boots and calling it a day from football permanently. I don't think he'll play for another club. I think he's going to be one of those stereotypical one club men. Yeah, and he's got his testimonial coming up as well, I think, Forrest. So I'd rather rare it. You don't see that very often. I think he's playing Bilbao in a testimonial. So that's another rare thing that happens nowadays. Not as common as it was 15, 20 years ago. But I was just thinking of the homegrown player side of it. It might have made sense to keep Russell.
I get that point. I get that, but he also might have his eye now. You might be having his eye now in your Vatters and that the world, Jonathan. And again, the homegrown players getting involved in these match day squads, that might need to evolve to a younger level as well and get them a wee taste of it. You don't want to end up with too many Ben Doak situations where, even though he was young when he got flung in by Celtic, that his head's turning. You want them to know there's a pathway and that we're not just keeping guys that we don't really see as part of the first team squad, but we just keep them because they tick the homegrown rule box. The whole point of the homegrown rule is to encourage youth players to be getting opportunities, and maybe it sends a better message if we get the likes of, you know what I mean, the likes of Vata, Lawal, maybe if Ange thinks they're good enough, to maybe get a wee bit closer and get a wee bit more of a taste of that, whilst obviously ticking the boxes we need to be compliant in those sort of rules. Right, start comment coming in that I saved from earlier from Harry Mackay. You like the panoramic photos, Jonathan, that Celtic do. He would like it with both the women's team and the men's team, both Ange and Fran with their squads, staff and silverware on show. It would be absolutely class and totally intimidating. Buy it. I like that. I like that idea. The women's team obviously got the win at the weekend. Heartbreak in the league. I mean, missed out in the league title by, a goal. In a very late one at that, and a disallowed one just after. But they then got the job done in the Scottish Cup final. We had Fran Alonso in my white blazer, hilariously doing the Celtic TV interview. Celtic Glasgow. Lo, 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 lo.
He just loves it. He just loves it, doesn't he?
I think if you look at the trajectory France took Celtic on, and I think it's apparently the third best financed out the top three, maybe the fourth best. I think maybe even Hearts have invested a bit more in the first team, and he was quite keen to point that out. When they didn't win the league, there'd been a financial disparity that he was working under than the rest. The speculation, I've seen some facts put up, some facts and figures that, how reliable they are, I don't know. That would suggest anyway though that Celtic's budget is actually kind of dwarfed by the other ones. So you wonder what he'll do now. He's got back-to-back Scottish Cup titles. Has took them within a whisk with the league. Back-to-back Champions League qualification. You wonder if he'll get supported a wee bit more transfer-wise, and because he's becoming a bit of an icon in Celtic support right now, and he is. Of whether people want to pay much attention to women's football yet, whether they're still to turn their head towards it, I have to admit my interest is fleeting. I have moments where I've watched. I watched this play a few weeks ago against Rangers, and me and Phil were doing the show and I was absolutely bouncing about, mate. Do you know what I mean? No, sorry, it was Glasgow City we were playing. We just played Rangers at the weekend. It was Glasgow City the other week, and I was bouncing about, and we scored. And I thought, I really should be trying to. It's not even making an effort. Once you put it on, you can still find yourself invested. I think the thought of it, I'm still a wee bit judgmental, which is shite. That's just me being honest, though. I would rather tell the truth. And I think there is a lot of us that we'd probably get more from it watching it than what we think we would. But undeniable, you need characters to kind of get you into that. I think, like I was saying earlier, the gif of Olivia Ferguson holding the ponytail like we look's just amazing. That's iconic. Fran Alonso has been iconic for a couple of years now. And I suppose them lifting trophies certainly buys into that. We know there'll be an alternative motive for a lot of fans because they want to get their Celtic end. That'll increase the hype, though, about the women's team nonetheless, so it's a win-win. And I think that photo sounds pretty cool, the two of them. Ange and Fran, they've done no bad.
Yeah, they certainly haven't. I think Fran Alonso certainly is good for the women's game. I think, he's certainly good at getting people a bit more invested in it because it certainly is growing, the women's game. And I think certainly the last day of the season has helped enormously with that because there was a lot more interest going into that with the fact 3 different teams could potentially win the league. It's just not a situation that comes around very often, if at all, in the actual men's game in Scotland. So, it's one of those ones where I think the women's game is getting a lot more traction. Fran Alonso is a character who knows how to. I think he knows how to play to the orchestra a little bit with the Celtic fans and gives it back, and he knows. How the club is run, and he's fully invested in the full thing, and I think the fans, have taken him into their hearts a little bit as well. And I think if you were to do a cross sort of picture between the men's and the women's squads, then that again would be of interest to a lot of different people because I think even having like a sit down interview with like Ange and Fran together, I think would be fascinating to watch.
You wonder why they don't think of these things at Celtic TV.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think
it's fucking staring you in the face, that sort of thing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of
even
parallels.
the photo, just them sitting with those trophies around them and exchanging ideas and getting a wee bit of insight, and them two kind of bouncing off each other, even if you're another presenter, and you kind of had them two just kind of shooting the breeze. That'd be class. Like, that would be class.
Yeah, I think it would absolutely work, and I think it works as well because there's quite a lot of similarities. I think between the two of them, and I think you'd find they've got quite a lot of common ground in how they go about their management styles and things along those sort of lines as well. So I think it's a great opportunity, and why not take advantage of that? In the next few weeks, particularly after the Scottish Cup final has been played, football's going to be a bit quieter. That's the kind of content fans would love to see, in the close season to kind of keep them ticking over until the competitive games start back up again, in July, August time. So I would be all for doing something like that. And, again, it's one of those ones where it's going to, again, raise the bar a little bit in the women's game. It's going to raise people being a bit more, invested in it potentially when they see these sort of things and they see the men's game and the women's game kind of interchanging. A little bit more, than I think that's good for pretty much all parties, involved. And I would imagine if they were to do a pitch like that, it would do extremely well because, as I say, the women's football, the fans' records have been broken a couple of times this season. And I appreciate part of that is because of what they're trying to do with the Celtic end, but that doesn't take away from the fact they're still choosing to spend their time going to these games. They're still, showing their support for the women's game at the same time. And it does generate more interest for more casual viewers to possibly tune in, because I think that's another one of the reasons why people don't watch it as much, is because of the fact there isn't that much of a crowd there. It can sometimes be played in front of too many empty seats and people just lose interest when it's like that. So there's so many different ways you could go about improving the women's game. I think that would be a good step towards increasing sort of notice of it, if you like. And I think it sounds like a bit of a no-brainer, particularly when you consider how much success both the men's and women's team have had this season.
Yes, rounded up nicely. David comes in. I'll just do one more wee point before we do the narrative and bragging rights cup version of Sutton Death. I could see McGinley waiting in the wings. Would you prefer, but just a wee look ahead, and I don't mind that for David, by the way, because we're going to have loads of time over the summer. The bus will carry on running as always. We'll have loads of time to deep dive into different various aspects that you don't get as much of a chance to do when you're reacting to form, you're reacting to recent performances, league tables, rival managers push on a bi-weekly basis.
Yep.
But David, so he's asking, what would you prefer? Whether we look to the future, Jonathan, finishing second in the Champions League or finishing third and getting a good run in that Europa League? He says, hail, hail, come on, this Celtic.
I mean, it's always a good question, that one, and it's one that gets posed quite a lot when you're in the pub, things like that, when the European games kind of come around. For me,
us in the pub. When are we ever in the pub? We don't go at the pub.
Just Friday there, I think. We were just in there on Friday. My memory's a bit hazy. My memory's a wee bit hazy, but I think we were in the pub on Friday. I think
yeah,
so.
I might have bumped into you, mate.
Might have been a coincidental meeting, perhaps. I can't really remember it too well. There was a lot of alcohol being consumed. But onto the question at hand from David. If you were asking me the question, and it was a question of finishing second in the group and then just getting knocked out by a Manchester City in the round of 16, I would probably rather have the run in the Europa League. I'd rather see us win some knockout games post-Christmas, because it's been so long since we've had a bit of a run. Get the excitement going a bit about trying to make inroads and get further into European competition. Now, I know Champions League, getting to the last 16, is going to be more of a financial boost for the club unless you go extremely far, or you might have to win the Europa League. I'm not entirely sure what the finances are in that. But for me, I would just rather have one of those sort of moments where you're actually getting through a couple of ties and you're starting to get a bit more excited about the possibility of tangible silverware. Finishing second in the Champions League groups would be an outstanding achievement if Celtic were to do that, considering the narrative about all the clubs, having all this extra money now and additional funds to spend, that, in a lot of cases is true and will dwarf Celtic forever and a day. If we're going to get to the last 16 of the Champions League, we kind of know we're probably not going to get much further than that, just because of the standard of the teams you're going to run up against. You could maybe get to the quarterfinals if you got a favourable draw or had a bit of luck along the way. But I think, if you're looking at finishing third and having a bit more of a run in the Europa League, I think Celtic fans could buy in to winning the Europa League. I think we'd find it a lot harder to buy in to winning the Champions League. And as you know, Russell, I like to win things, so I would always pick an extended run in the Europa League.
I think the Champions League, I would go for the second in the Champions League. Why not, mate? If you're gonna enter a competition, go as far in as you can. I think there's nothing changes that music playing. I remember do you know what I loved? The whole narrative can shift. I remember going up ahead of the Juventus tie, and there was the carnage right before the kickoff in the day of it, when you realised Efe Ambrose had made an absolute James Hunt of it, and was still as drunk as I am doing PMP basically. It's like me actually finishing PMP with Terry and then going for a game of sevens. That's basically what Efe Ambrose did. But I still think, if you remember the lead up to that, we felt, go on, bring them on. We beat Barcelona in this, and you're with the big boys, and you just feel a part of it. And it's like you feel a sense of belonging far more when it's the Champions League than the Europa League. Celtic, to me, is a Champions League club. We dine at the top table. We haven't dined it enough. I think any opportunity we get, if we were to get last 16, you grab it, and then you see what happens. And who's to say over 2 games what could happen? You just never know. You get a good draw, and if you're then in the last 8, Celtic's reputation from a last 8, say if you were, I know we're getting way, way ahead of ourselves here, but if you were to get a result in that last 16 and make a last 8, you elevate the club's reputation a different stratosphere from what even winning the whole Europa League would take you. That's the reality by being in the last 8 of the Champions League. So you stay, I agree with Alan Woods that he just says, stay in the Champions League as long as you possibly can. Yeah, I think hang on. But I get your point, by the way. I'm not disagreeing for disagreeing's sake. It's absolutely fine to have different views on it. But yeah, for me, I just think that we've missed out on so many opportunities to even be in the Champions League through narrow playoff defeats or qualifying round defeats and things. I think when you're in there, you cling to it as long as you can once you're in it, and give me second any day. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's obviously second or third would be a vast improvement on what we did this year, and we think this year has been a fantastic season. So, a long way to go before we get to there, and obviously the summer will play a big part, and we will discuss all that. Anyway, Jonathan, I have got the wooden spoon ready to win tonight, and he comes. It's Phil McGinley. What's
All right,
happening,
boys.
son?
Oh, Phil, how's it going?
Aye, good. How are you guys doing tonight?
Feeling champion, Phil. Feeling champion.
Sure you are.
Actually, I would just like to say, since I took over playing in Sutton Death, the performances have been better. I've been doing better. He already had the advantage. He's been using... does anyone know this? He's been using Sprockle all week. I'm thinking I'm going to go into Mickey Beale now. You little bastard. Tell the truth, Jonathan. How did you prepare for last week?
Well, Russell, you do your research. It's like trying to turn around and say Ange Postecoglou shouldn't be preparing for the Scottish Cup final at the weekend. Is he just supposed to put a team out on the pitch on the day?
Oh, well, you're giving me too much credit. It's meant to be the Tuesday ticket, the Monday club as it used to be, just random question, test your knowledge. That wee bastard spent all week, and he told me this, by the way. So don't even try and deny it now.
I'm not denying it, but I just outsmarted you. Russell. You just
so
don't
naughty.
like being outsmarted.
I didn't even know what Sprockle bloody was.
But I also said,
How did you find that? How did you Google Sprockle?
On the flip side, you get every Friday you go on Bustalgia. Phil does a very good job on that. If people haven't watched it, they should. But Phil gives you an absolute bookload of information every week on that. And really, you've not just let yourself down, you've let Phil down by not winning Sutton Death with all the material he's given you, because it was all there. If you've read all the emails, it was all there, Russell.
That is dark. Phil,
I barely said a word.
I'm sorry about him. But the three amigos, we did make a decision last week after Jonathan had sort of brushed all the confetti away. We decided Sutton Death was going to carry on next year, so we will do it again. But we made an educated decision that for Phil to come up over a whole season, which is like about 42, 43 weeks of Sutton Death, all on Celtic would be difficult. Mm-hmm. So we discussed whether we should make it a quiz format one week, but I think the Sutton Death reaction, I think we've decided anyway. I basically said it, and then we've kind of came to an agreement. It's how it works on the bus. It's a dictatorship. That's a joke, by the way. We're going to go with the exact same format, but each week we will find out, i.e. like after the quiz, roughly what the one's about the next week. Is that about right? Is that what we agreed?
Yeah, and it can be any sort of football.
It could be
trivia.
We're going to be doing, you better get your South American football hat on, or it's going to be international football. It could be the topic. It could be, European competitions. It could be English Premier League, the Premier League era, and then it'll be sprinkled with Celtic ones as well. But it's just to keep Phil with actually enough work, so he can actually come up with a quiz, because I think he's done an exceptional job this year. And thank you so much for being the quiz master, Phil. We appreciate it.
No worries at all. No worries. No, I was running out of stuff. I'm glad the end date's here, because I was running out. So the fact I can go to a few different areas next season should make it nice and spicy. So I'm looking forward to that. But yes, tonight we do have one
Celtic
more
ones will come to your mind on the back of it.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's what will happen. So that will still be fun, and I think we keep it the back and forth format. I think folk have definitely seen that works. That works definitely. Yeah. So we're not going to lose that. But we will take a break for it in the summer. And then, season 2 will begin round kickoff time next year.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm going to turn my comments off.
Mine are already off.
No worries at all, guys. Yes, we do have one more round to go. As Russell said, this is the narrative bragging rights Ailey Barber sponsored Sutton Death round, whatever you want to call it. This is the one. But yes, we've got one more to go. So I will get all of the aesthetics in place for one more time this season, and then we will be good to go. And to answer a question that Gary88 asked in the chat, no, this is not a Motherwell top. It's an AS Roma top from the 60s. They have a rather big game this week, so I'm kind of nailing my colours to the mast of who I'm.
Oh, can we ask the question?
You're going for Jono'S. You're going for Jono'S. Roma.
Who do you want to win, Jonathan?
I want Roma as well.
Yeah, me too. I definitely want Jose to win. 100%.
I just think he'll find a way. He always does. He's never lost a European. I know Sevilla's never lost a Europa League final. I know that.
Someone's always got to go. I think Europa League finals are
it's glamorous this year after last year. Oh, it's much more glamorous this year.
It's a compelling watch because it's Sevilla who, for whatever reason, no matter who's in charge over the last 2 decades, have kind of just find a way in this tournament. It's bizarre how much they've dominated it. Never lost in 6 finals, is it?
6 finals out of 6. They're going for the 7th field. Yep.
And Mourinho's not lost in 5 European finals.
5, and the last person to score against him was Henrik Larsson in 2003 in a final, in a European final.
Oh, hell.
Yep.
You're showing off.
Jose versus Sevilla, that is box office.
Box office. Oh, aye. Box office.
It's well worth watching. And
I'm a big advocate for Italian teams getting to the final.
Me too.
It's actually the 90s, so I've also got for the Champions League final Inter and Fiorentina for the Conference League final.
Are you
I'm covering all bases there.
The
Italian treble.
It will be like the 90s again if that happens. See, James Richardson will be absolutely delighted sitting there.
Galazzo's making a return on Channel 4.
Yes. So I'm a big advocate of seeing Italian football back on. Being such a Roberto Baggio fanboy, you know. So I am delighted to see it making a comeback here, but that Champions League final is going to be tough for Inter, I think, to beat Man City. They are a machine.
Oh, that would be a massive upset. Be a massive upset if they've done it, but they have done it to Pep before, into Milan again under a certain Jose Mourinho, if I remember correctly.
They did. They beat Bayern Munich. So yeah, he always finds a way. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But let's decide this one for the last time this season. Let's get it done. Tonight's question. I'm assuming, Jonathan, you're going to go first, or are you going to pass it over for the last time?
You know what? I'm going to go second. Let him go first.
It's actually mad because this sums it all up for you, though, doesn't it? Because this shows you don't care, so you can afford to do that. And folk can't understand. That's what Ange's been doing when he's playing 4 different starters at Ibrox and stuff. It's the exact same thing. Human nature, mate. Fair enough.
That's fair enough. Okay, so tonight's question does have some sort of connection to European football, which you're talking about there. It's about one man in particular. It's about Mr. Henrik Larsson, because as we know, Henrik is the all-time top scorer in Europe for Celtic. He's scored against 21 different teams in European competition. So guys, I'm simply looking for the name of any team that Henrik Larsson has scored against in Europe while playing for Celtic. 21 of them.
I'll go for my favourite European goal. In fact, my favourite Henrik Larsson goal.
I know what it is already. Yeah, I knew it was going to be that one when you said that.
Of course, Blackburn.
That chip.
That chip is outrageous, isn't it? Absolutely outrageous. I may as well just take the one that we were talking about. We'll take Porto, shall we? We'll take that sad game out of it.
I mean, I literally gave an answer just to the build-up there, but how can we forget that one? How can we forget? You know.
And how did we play Porto? We played Porto by knocking out Boa Vista.
He scored a very crucial goal that night. Yep.
And how did we beat Boa Vista? We beat Boa Vista by beating Liverpool, and he scored in the first leg of that one too.
That's just back to a broken jaw, I do believe, as well.
I will go for Juventus.
That would be correct. With a penalty out in Turin. Extraordinary. Extraordinary.
Extraordinary. He curled his arse when he was saying that.
Oh, he did.
Let's see, who shall I go for next? Anderlecht?
Anderlecht is a correct answer, yes.
I'm getting humped here, by the way. I've not got a clue. I'm not even using a pen. I'm just winging it. I will go for his absolute peach past Santiago Canizares, Valencia.
Valencia, of course, is correct. That puts Russell 4-3 up.
For clarity, do qualifiers count on this?
Yeah, just any European fixture.
European goals.
Oh, yeah. Kaunas?
That's my guess. Yes.
Kaunas is a correct answer, yes.
Now I'm
Mad
struggling.
Lads are a team, yes, Kaunas.
Now I'm struggling.
Oh.
This is a guess. I'm guessing already.
Oh, wow.
I'm struggling as well, to be honest with you.
I'm going to say Rosenborg.
Rosenborg's the
Yes.
wrong answer.
Oof.
I'm not surprised. I don't have a clue. I've not tried. I'm not
Rosenborg was Alan Thompson scored in that one, and
Was
it
it? Oh, we got
was
beat 2-0
Brabak
away
scored
off
the
them.
2 away from home, aye.
That's right. By irony, and Harold Bradback scoring 2 and Henrik scoring none.
Yeah, that's not very good. That's not very good. I'm also struggling, to be honest with you. I can think of a game, but I can't think of the team for which I know he scored and which is annoying. I can't think of the game. I'm gonna say I don't think he did though. I'm gonna say Leon.
No,
And
he set him
Leon
up.
is an incorrect answer.
2 assists.
As well, so
Two
we've got
assists, that's what I thought.
we've got an interesting moment here because it's tied after 5. You are both admitting that you're struggling. We can keep guessing for another 5 maximum, and
I've
maybe
got one, I
somebody
think.
will hit one. Okay, keep going.
I might have one. I might hold them in.
So, hold on, I'll just get my.
I hope this is right.
Right, so we're going for another 5 maximum, and if you're still level after that, then we do a. That'd be a hell of a way to end the series. The actual tiebreaker question.
I think Helsinki.
HJK
That's what I think
Helsinki
of. I think that's right.
is a correct answer in a qualifying game in 2001, I think. Yeah, Helsinki's correct.
I think I've got another one as well, though. Possibly. I'm hoping it's a guess, but I definitely played. I think he played against them. Basel.
Yes, he did score against FC Basel.
Oh,
He did.
that's a great shout.
Basel is a correct answer. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 left at the moment.
Shit. How many left?
11.
How are we so bad at this?
Oh, you've hit all the big ones that I expected, but yeah, the ones that are left are pretty tricky.
Are they? Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm going to just throw one out. I don't really have a clue. I'll say KR Reykjavik. Don't remember playing them.
KR Reykjavik is a wrong answer in this case. I think we played them under Ronnie, but yeah, Henrik was long
We
gone
played
at
them
that
at some
point.
point. I can't remember.
We definitely played them at some point. Jono.
I've got an idea of a team, but I've got no idea how you say it. It's like Neuchâtel Exodus or something.
Um,
In the 90s.
What?
I can't.
XEMAS.
To be fair, I'm looking at the names of teams that are left, and it's nothing close to that at all. I can't give away any clues.
I
what
think we'll go for
so-
the decider. Jonathan Shaway, for the final show. We're both at the same stage.
We've never done a
Shake hands and go for the
on it, so-
decider.
Yeah, why not?
Right, let's
Do it.
Fair enough.
No worries. Okay, so the tiebreaker question is one of those ones. How many
How
goals?
long
did
have
a
you
player
had this
score?
tiebreaker question for, Phil? Sorry,
I've had this one saved up
Right.
since the last one, which we never even got to use. We used it for deciding who won the shot, remember? So you never actually got to.
So how long's it been sitting in the back?
Oh, this one's been probably about, I don't know, about 12 weeks or something. I don't know. Maybe longer. Who knows? Right, okay, so the tiebreaker question is one of these ones again. You're going to be guessing a number of how many goals you think a player scored. So the player in question, so in 2 spells with the
Terrible
club,
at this.
how many goals in all competitions did Sean Maloney
You're gonna
score?
say Sean Maloney.
Now, you can, it's basically without going over, so it's the closest to it without going over.
Oh,
It's in total over both his spells, did you say?
Over
Yeah.
both his spells in all competitions. I took it off of the CelticWiki.com. We've got a nice wee breakdown of Scottish Cup, League Cup, Scottish Cup, Europe, because Wikipedia just shows league goals, I believe.
Okay.
So
sure shot, Jonathan.
What shall I go for? I'm gonna go 44.
Okay.
Mental.
And Russell.
Absolutely mental. I had 43 in my head. I'm going to stick with 43.
43.
I promise you that's what I had in my head.
Interesting one, because giving so much room there. Now, of course, the rule was the closest to it without going over. Jonathan, you have won because the answer's 52.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I didn't think it got to 50. Fair enough.
I didn't.
But Russell, everyone should be a winner really on Sutton Death. And, I was talking with Phil and I did do a little bit of negotiating and I have got a little wooden spoon for you. We'll send over and you can keep that. Nobody leaves a loser on Sutton Death. We've got a little wooden spoon for you. We also have a nice little trophy for me that will be in my trophy cabinet for another season. It's a little Scottish Cup. Hopefully Celtic win the big one come the weekend.
I mean, if anyone wonders, if those memberships are working for the bus or not, that's the budgets that we live in now.
Yeah.
Oh, aye. Oh, I mean, the C word's been used too much.
A finger-sized Scottish Cup trophy for putting yourself through torture for a whole season. Oh, jeez. Oh. We'll maybe get you a bigger one for next year if you win it, mate. Maybe.
Do you want to know the remaining answers that you could
That was good. I like
the
the
last one?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so the most obvious one people were shouting it in the comments was Celta Vigo from the run.
Celta Vigo.
I had Celta Vigo in. I couldn't remember his goal.
Who was the one we played in the first game in that UEFA Cup run? That was one I was trying to remember. Saduva. Before than that. That was what I was trying to remember.
Yeah. So a few from the late 90s, St. Patrick's Athletic, Victoria Guimarães, who Mikey Johnson's on loan at the now, FC Zurich, Hapoel Tel Aviv. There's a team for Luxembourg. I can't even pronounce it. It's like Jeunesssesch. I don't know how to pronounce it. Bordeaux was quite a big one from Martin Riel's first season. He scored out in Bordeaux. MTK Budapest, Teplice, and Villarreal.
Teplice.
Barcelona. Oh, his last season.
Villarreal. Oh. Yeah, that was shockingly bad, Russell. Shockingly bad.
There you go.
That was bad. Poor Henrik.
Just like, and you pretend you idolise me.
I know. That's our chances of him coming on the bus gone.
Yeah. Just so we didn't ask any Kenny Dalglish questions, eh?
Oh, well, maybe I'll save one of them for next season. Who knows? We shall see.
You never know. We never know. Anyway, thank you very much. That has been a brilliant season of Sutton Death. It's been a great fun and new Tuesday ticket tonight. We went a wee bit longer than normal. There's 122 live. We can't thank you enough for watching for so long. Remember to like, share, slag our hair. If you want to subscribe, do hit that button. If you want to become a member, like so many of you have, then we all appreciate that too. Phil, well done running the Sutton Death. Jonathan, an even bigger well done on winning it. That is it. Sutton Death done, but don't worry. The bus will be back soon because we never stop. And Jonathan, I am a lucky man.